Welcome back to another devlog of Super Mighty Ultra Ball. Unfortunately this week, like last week, I did not do much work at all on the game. You may notice some buttons are missing. That's because this is actually a public release build. I found a streamer on Twitch yesterday who plays people's, he's another developer, he plays other developers' games. So I took a chance and made pre-alpha release 1 for him and sent it to him and watched him play my game. It was interesting. It was a good experience. He had a lot of great feedback. He seemed to really enjoy it, and I actually got some people in the chat requesting, asking where they can get it. So that was encouraging. But this week, my primary concern has been working on this. This is my particle system editor, and as you can see, I've got a pretty cool particle system going on here. This is similar to one I came across earlier today when I was testing things, and I thought it was really cool, so I thought I'd share it with you guys. But yeah, this is a pretty full-featured particle system. This one in particular is a sphere emitter with particles. I've got this right here. I've got a cool little gradient over it so that it tints it a different color as it starts off its life. And I'm able to, I set the sphere, I'm able to change the angle that it can spawn on. So if I change it to 5, I'm going to get a totally different effect. If I change this to, let's say, 120 and 180, then it's just going to spout from certain areas. And if I do 360 and something like 280, it'll just come right out of the bottom. And another cool thing I can do with this is most of these values can be controlled through different manners. Let's just look at the rotation of the emitter, the emission. So if I wanted to, I can set this to be a curve instead of a constant value. And now it's going from 0 to 1 by default. So if I wanted this to change, let's say I just want to go a complete circle every time particle system loops. You can see the emitter is rotating there. Now if I change this to be like 330, we'll get a much smaller emitter. And then you can get an idea of how this might look in a game. So there's a lot of possibilities of what you can do with this this particle system. I'm very excited. I haven't even begun to implement some of the other cool things. If you haven't worked with Unity before, you might not realize, but this is heavily inspired by Unity's new particle system with the with all the settings and the ability to change things. And so I'm really excited about it. I think there's a lot of potential here, and so far I've got a lot of different things that you can manipulate. You have the basic system information, how long it lasts. If I change this to 2, it'll spin a lot faster. If I change it to 10, it'll spin a lot slower. Pre-warm, this is good for when you are creating it in game. If you want it to have run for a few seconds before it displays to the user. In some instances that may be useful. Gravity multiplier, currently it's at 6, I'll change it to 0 and do that, or I can change it to a -1 and watch everything float away. So that's cool. You can emit in local space, which doesn't really work yet. You can adjust the rate over time. I have about 500 particles hard-coded max, so about 165 or so is about the max you can get without noticeable delay. If I do like 500, it will do it all in one chunk until those die. Then I'll do another chunk until those die. Then I'll do another chunk until those die. Then I'll do another chunk. So having it pretty much evenly divisible into 500 by the lifetime. So if I make this 1, then I can do a 500. Then it looks kind of like a flamethrower. So there's those settings. Oops. And of course, if I wanted this to spin faster, let's see, X rotation, I can make this like 720. Whoops. Did not mean to do quite that many. 720. Now do. Did I do the wrong one? No, I didn't. So now it does 2 rotations in the allotted time. You can control the particle lifetime and have it change. If you use a curve or random before 2 curves or between 2 curves, you can have the lifetime of particles vary from the start of the particle system duration until the end. And pretty much with all of these starting values that can be adjusted based off the life of the particle system. Then the particle movement, inherent velocity is useful if the particle system itself is going to be moving, as if it's attached to something. Then if it's moving in the x direction, when the particle is spawned, it will have that velocity added to its x direction, and so forth. Damping over lifetime applies a damping force to each particle as the particle system, or as each particle lives, which I'm actually considering removing because it can be achieved with speed over lifetime as well, with a pretty good degree of control. Although there might be uses for this. Rotation over lifetime, you can have each particle rotate. Rotation over speed, you can have the particles rotate at a different rate depending on how fast they're moving, which could prove interesting. Color over speed, same thing. Color over lifetime, of course, you have a particle, or a gradient that you can adjust, and it changes everything. And currently all I have is billboard rendering with addition additive blending. So, but yeah, I mean, there is a ton you can do with this. I'm very excited about the potential, and looking forward to all the cool effects and polish I'll be able to add with this. I mentioned this was inspired by Unity's particle system. I also want to add particle trails and obviously more rendering types. So that's what I'm going to be working on next week. Didn't mention, but you have multiple different emission types. Like you could have just a single point that goes out from all directions from the point. You have the sphere, which you've already seen. Circle, which is good for 2D particles. Let's go ahead and just change that back to a constant. And you can't really tell with this, so let's turn the speed to 0. And let's make the radius a bit bigger. So with the spawn volume, this tells it how much of the internal volume of the shape to use. If I tell it 1, it'll use the entire volume. If I tell it 0, it will restrict it to the exterior, and this works with all the shapes. So let's make this a little bit bigger so you can see it better. So it's pretty cool when you don't see the guides or the floors in there, but they're useful in keeping yourself oriented while you're setting it up. We've got a box. We're going to make synchronized values 5. So again, it's just the exterior of the box and square. And whoa, that's going to be way too big. 5. All right, and if you give it a speed, it goes based off the face. I got to turn off gravity. So yeah. And again, if you make this rotate, curve, let's rotate it around the Y. And then if you turn all the axes off, I like working on a background on these colorful ones. But yeah, so as you can see, there's a ton of options and potential with this. So I'm really excited to get those trails in there. I think that'll add just another element of awesomeness to this. So that's it. This is what I've been doing this week. Hopefully I'll have some even better particle systems to show you next week. I don't have saving implemented yet, so I can't actually save these and load them and duplicate them. So it's been kind of depressing to create really cool particle systems only to not be able to keep them. But yeah, next week hopefully I will have another update. Next week's going to be a bit shorter for me. Family and I are going out of town, so won't have quite as much time next week. But I've rambled on long enough. If you've stuck around this long, kudos to you, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.